about their need to pray always and not to lose heart. He said, "In a certain city there was a judge who neither feared God nor had respect for people. In that city there was a widow who kept coming to him and saying, 'Grant me justice against my opponent.' For a while he refused, but later he said to himself, 'Though I have no fear of God and no respect for anyone, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will grant her justice, so that she may not wear me out by continually coming.' And the Lord said, 'Listen to what the unjust judge says. And will not God grant justice to his chosen ones, who cry out to him day and night? Will he delay long in helping them? I tell you, he will quickly grant justice to them. And yet when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth?'" The word of God for the people of God. Please be seated. Thank you, Summer, for that introduction. I'm thrilled to get to be here with you this morning. And as I begin, I would like to introduce you to somebody else. His name is Alejandro. Alejandro came to a place called Casa Gabriel. Casa Gabriel is a home for former street boys in Quito, Ecuador, with whom we have the privilege of working. It's one of the many ministries that my husband and I are connected to. But he came when he was about 15 years old. A social worker at the school where he was attending noticed that although he was a good student, he was behind where he should be. She called the director of Casa Gabriel, a man named Phil Payne, and said, Phil Dallas, and said, "Alejandro is clearly smart and motivated, but he's falling behind because he's missing more and more days of school. I found out that's because he's sleeping at a bus station, and he's carrying people's luggage to make a little bit of change, and he's not making enough for food and for school supplies by just carrying the luggage on weekends. So he's having to skip school to be able to provide for himself. Can you help him at Casa Gabriel?" When Alejandro came to Casa Gabriel, he was socially awkward. The other boys were embarrassed by his wardrobe choices, and he was indeed behind in school. Yet, the Casa Gabriel academic coordinator, provided through funding from an organization called Education Equals Hope, helped him to study hard and catch up. And seeing him today, you would never guess his background. He's outgoing, he's social, he still has a distinctive sense of style, but is an incredibly generous person. After graduating from high school and the Casa G program, Alejandro took his college entrance exam. In Ecuador, this exam determines what, if any, public college you can get into. Alejandro, a boy who used to sleep in a bus station and asked to carry strangers' luggage for them to pay for his school supplies, scored in the 90th percentile of the entire country. He was given a full scholarship to the college of his choice. And now Alejandro is studying to become an environmental engineer. He's also working to support himself and continues to be involved with Casa Gabriel. When he can, he'll show up to help with a volunteer project or to play soccer with the other guys. When his birthday rolls around, the Casa Gabriel staff always invite him over for dinner and cake. And he gets as excited as a little kid about being celebrated in the place that he calls home and family. Alejandro is an inspiration to the other guys to study hard, to graduate from high school, and to dream big. Dream big. What a cool thing for young people to do. What a cool thing for all of us to do. There's been a lot of research done on the power of dreams. of wanting to do something, of hoping that one day you can do something. Fill in that blank. And what the research tells us that dreaming instills is hope. The power of a dream. I find myself wondering how many of us perhaps are scared to dream or might not find the purpose in dreaming. And mostly for practical reasons. Who has the time to sit and dream? Who has the energy to dream? We probably, good, I am so glad. Keep those hands held high. I would imagine that a lot of us wouldn't have the resources to accomplish what we're dreaming about anyway. The material resources, and again, the time and the energy. So why bother to dream? I have a friend who talks about how her dreamer is broken. She used to dream, but not anymore. But let us remember to always raise our gaze from what we think we cannot do, and remember that we are followers of the living God. And that, as they say, is a game changer. We know the God that can do all things. As we look at today's gospel, we see a widow who dreamed big. She hounded the judge day and night. She was, after all, a widow, which in that time and space made her powerless. She had no advocate. She had no one who would encourage her to say, yes, this is what you should keep on doing, or let me do that for you. She was desperate. And in her persistence, even a self-centered judge finally granted her justice. In this story, let us not miss that it is Jesus himself who encourages us that if this remarkable justice giving can happen by a self-centered judge who cared not for God or for other men, but there is a God who loves us, who knows us. And how much more is our living God ready to help make justice happen? Justice happening. That is a big dream. But we have a big God. Let me share with you a dream that I once had. It's a scholarship program that I accidentally started. And it's called Education Equals Hope. There's a video that will show you in 3 minutes and 55 seconds a lot more than I could ever say in words.
Me llamo Laura Farinango, tengo 25 años y soy la hija número 7 de mis hermanos, somos 9. Mi mamá quedó viuda y no tenía recursos para continuar en la educación de la primaria.
A lot of times single mothers do not have the income to send the kids to school. Even though education in Quito is supposedly free, you have to have uniforms and supplies and pay for entrance exams and exit exams.
If you don't have the right uniform or if you don't have the textbook that you need for that particular class, you're not allowed to enter the class. Educationalist Hope started in 2003 with one girl named Laura Farinango. We saw her change dramatically from a young girl who was enthusiastic about life and always involved and helpful and engaged to very sullen and removed. Something dramatic had happened, and it was that she didn't have the opportunity to study, and that she had to quit school because she didn't have the resources. And I asked her how much money was she talking about, or the resources she needed, and she needed about $20 a month in order to continue to study. And my roommate and I thought about it and said, well, we can find $20 a month, especially between the two of us. And so that's how Educationalist Hope started.
You sponsor a scholarship, it gives hope to these children, it gives them a future.
The scholarship covers, depending on the child, uniform, school supplies, books, snack during school hours.
Through this program, we're hoping that the next generation will be able to graduate high school, maybe even go on to college, and therefore provide for their families in a way that their parents couldn't.
Because Laura has a high school education, she can now pour into her community where she grew up. She tutors over 50 children through an after-school program. So just helping her is now helping 50 kids.
He podido ver cómo niños que tal vez podrían tener un futuro en la calle como ladrones, como delincuentes, ahora con el proyecto de educación veo cómo pueden restablecer su vida con una familia, con trabajo, con estudio.
When these students have the opportunity to study and learn, and the self-worth that comes with that, and knowing that they matter, it changes not only them, it changes their families, it changes their communities, and I believe that even their countries.
Sin la beca yo sé que mi rumbo hubiera sido diferente y hubiera estado al lado de mi madre siendo alcohólica.
Education Equals Hope provides exactly what the name says, hope. Hope for a future, a hope for a job, a hope to break the cycle of poverty, a hope to not be like their parents, a hope to care for themselves and for others. So that's Education Equals Hope. And a dream I had of helping Laura. Okay, well, there were 2 or 3 other young girls. And there were other people who had come down on short-term teams, and they wanted to help sponsor those girls to go to school. Okay, we will help 15 kids at Carmen Baco. I'm going to go to the ATM. I'm going to pull out money. I'm going to pay their school supplies. I need the receipts. I need to send them back to the donors. It's the next month. We need to do it again. 15 people, that's my limit. I can't handle anymore. Okay, well 10 more at another church. It's a different system. I can get someone to come help me. And we're just going to stand in the gap. These are students. They're public education, but they don't have, some of them, the $8 a month. Laura needed 22. Some need 3. Some need 25. It's a very reasonable sum of money, but minimum wage is $350 a month. And if you have 4 children and you're not even making minimum wage, just that little bit is what is keeping your child from an education. So I'll do 15 kids at Carmen Baco. I'll do 10 at Amos, but that's it, no more. 25 kids tops. Yesterday, we had our annual board meeting for Education Equals Hope because it's now become a 501c3. And we are sponsoring about 1,200 students in Ecuador and in Haiti, an orphanage in Uganda, a school for the visually impaired in Rwanda. This growth in the program has very little, if anything, to do with me. It has to do with other people who have dreamed big and come alongside us. Dream big. and be the change that you want to see in the world. Perhaps they're cliches, but they're where I want to camp out today. I want you to be able to look at each other. I want you to look at your parents when you walk out of this service. Parents, I want you to look at your children. I want you to say to your roommates, to your coworkers, I want to dream big, and I want to be the change. And this is not just a pep talk. This is about real life. These are real kids. These are kids that I know. We're talking about Edison, and we're talking about Ebony. We're talking about Lenny, and we're talking about Lupe, mother of two whose husband's in a wheelchair. We're talking about Adrian and Catherine. These are kids and people that I know. And they're all kids who come out of desperate and difficult places. What you and I would describe as poverty. And I would guess the majority of us in this room have a very similar or very common understanding of what poverty is. It's a lack of food, a lack of housing, a lack of medicine, not enough money to pay the bills. At least that's what my definition of poverty was. But it's not anymore. There's an excerpt from a book called When Helping Hurts, How to Alleviate Poverty Without Hurting the Poor, that has and explains another definition of poverty that I'm just going to read to you. The authors polled dozens of middle to upper class, predominantly Caucasian North American churches about the very definition of poverty. In the vast majority of cases, these audiences describe poverty differently than the poor in low-income countries do. While poor people do mention having a lack of things, they tend to describe their condition in far more psychological terms. Poor people typically talk in terms of shame, inferiority, powerlessness, humiliation, fear, hopelessness. North American audiences tend to emphasize the lack of material things such as food, money, clean water, medicine, housing. This mismatch between many outsiders' perception of poverty and the perceptions of the poor people themselves can have devastating consequences in poverty alleviation efforts. There certainly is material poverty and wealth, but there is also emotional poverty, or poverty of self. It's pretty easy to understand where it comes from. Well, I guess I should back up and remind us that it ultimately comes as a result of the fall. When we broke, or that right relationship with God was broken, and our right relationship with ourselves. But in this fallen and broken world, as we continue to live out, it gets perpetuated. If you are abused every day, physically or emotionally, and as a side note, in Ecuador, it's estimated that 90% of the country is involved in physical abuse as a perpetrator or as a victim. When you suffer abuse every day, it's hard to believe that you're valuable and that other people sincerely care about you. And if no one else cares about you, why should you care about yourself? This poverty of self is seen when you believe about yourself, and this is an Ecuador-specific quote, the indigenous people of Ecuador's destiny is to be poor. How do you become motivated to keep going in school past second grade, especially when your labor is needed to help feed your family? This poverty of self is seen when your own mother refuses to take you to the doctor when you're sick because you're a girl. And precious money can only be used to take your brother to the doctor. Because boys are more valuable than girls in so many places in this world. Our education will help students all come out of systems of poverty, whether that be material poverty or poverty of self, where they are considered less than by most of the world around them, whether it's because of their age or their gender or being abused or being neglected. I would venture that most of us in this room grew up or are growing up with a sense of, yes, you can. You can do anything. You can be anything. You can lead worship at 7 years old. In so many parts of the world, so many children are growing up with the mentality that you can do nothing because you're worth nothing, because you are nothing. Because their parents or their caregivers grew up with that same mentality. And the vicious cycle repeats itself. Those of us who are followers of Christ know that is a lie. And know that our worth and our value come from God, not from each other, not from this world, but from God. Let us teach that truth over and over again. And like it said in the reading this morning in 2 Timothy, but as for you, continue in what you have learned and firmly believe. There is so much to do here in Rock Hill and all over the globe to build God's kingdom and to help others, especially children, understand that they are loved by our living God. They matter. For the 350 students, Education Equals Hope students in Ecuador that come from desperate, difficult places, helping to provide an education for them is one of the best ways I know to try to help them. It's one of the best ways I know to try to alleviate that poverty of self. It's one of the best ways I know to try to prevent a poverty of self. It's one of the best ways that I know how to teach them to dream big. And here's what happens when we dream. This is what happened to Marvin. Marvin was 7 when I first got to Ecuador. He's the third of 4 brothers, and their mom abandoned the family to start a new family about a year before I got there. He and his little brother Edison attended a church at one of the ministry sites where we work with short-term teens, one of the places similar to where the team from St. John's went. His dad, Pedro, works and still does as a maintenance man in one of the museums in downtown Colonial Quito. But that means that he leaves the house 6 days a week at 6:45 a.m. and comes home sometime after 7 p.m. And this left the boys to pretty much raise themselves. Edison was 3, Marvin was 7. They live in 2 concrete rooms with no running water inside the house. And Marvin is a very bright student, but with little hope of finishing school, just like his 2 elder brothers had not, and little hope of doing more than being a maintenance man like his dad. Their goal was to survive. Happily, through the scholarship program, he was able not only to get through school, but he actually went to an even better school where he was academically challenged. And he graduated as the valedictorian. And through a donation of specific donor, he is now continuing his education in university, where he is studying to be a sound engineer. And today, that is job security for him, for his brothers, for his family, for his uncles and cousins. He is judiciously aware that his life, and the life of his family, has been completely altered by the generosity of people he didn't know. Helping and encouraging him to get an education. He strives to represent them and his family well in university, and that's how Marvin's life was changed, by dreaming big. Teresita is a young woman that some of you know in this room from the church Emmaus, where St. John's did work this summer. She is of indigenous descent, Quechua Indian. From the time she was very little, she was at work at 4 a.m. with her brothers and sisters, forming clay bricks from hand and firing them. Through the scholarship program, she was able to finish high school, and she got a degree. In Ecuador, you had a degree when you finished high school in bookkeeping. And she's now A, the church treasurer, but B, she has a job at a hardware store keeping the books. A young woman who was told that she would never, ever do anything but manual labor her whole life. Turns out, she's pretty smart. And then there's Natalia. Natalia came to Casa Gabriel when she was 18. I said that wrong. She came to Casa Adalia when she was 18. Casa Adalia is a partner ministry with Casa Gabriel. It's another place that we have the incredible privilege of serving with Education Equals Hope. And it's a home for girls coming out of vulnerable situations, which is the nice way to say human trafficking. She has a baby girl, and she's working hard to be a good mother. But with only a grade school education, there were lots of gaps in her education. And so the tutor at Casa Dalia, made possible through Education Equals Hope, do you think there's a theme here? She was working hard with Natalia to help her figure out and fill in the gaps of her education. They were working on the basics, reading, writing, and math, and things like writing an email and how a mouse is connected to a computer screen. One day, the weekend house mom at Casa Dalia was having breakfast with Natalia, which, by the way, is not her real name, which has been changed to protect her identity. But she had noticed Natalia staring intently up at the clock on the wall. And the house mom watched with curiosity until Natalia turned around and said, "It's 10 minutes to 8, right?" The house mom nodded, and Natalia, at 18 years old, and a mother, clapped her hands and said, "I'm learning how to tell time. I'm so excited." No one had ever taught her how to read an analog clock. "I used to wear a watch," she said, "but when people would ask me what time it was, I would get so embarrassed because I didn't know how to tell them. So I stopped wearing one. But now, I can wear a watch again." It wasn't long afterward that Natalia did indeed begin wearing a watch. And she could tell anyone who asked what time it was. She continued to study and move forward in her education, and that gives her the confidence, not only the material or the ability to use what she's learning, but the confidence instilled in her because she can. She can provide for herself and for her daughter. That's how dreaming big changed Natalia's life and her daughter's. As followers of Christ, we have the incredible privilege and we have the incredible responsibility to dream big. And we believe in a God that can do all things, including directing us and being the change. Not just thinking about the change, not just saying, "Good job, you, for being the change," but for us to be the change that we want to see in the world. And a congregation as active and as clearly as vibrant as St. John's is, you are clearly already doing this. But I want you to be encouraged. I want you to be challenged to keep going. I want you to be invigorated to do all that God has given you the ability and the strength to do. It changes the lives of our brothers and sisters whom you already prayed for this morning. It changes the lives of children living in desperate and difficult places. And it changes all of our lives as we journey together in faith. We have a table set up upstairs and would love to give you information on how you can be a part of education equals hope and continue to change the lives of these children in desperate and difficult places. Whether you want to do that or something else, I just hope that you will dream big and rely on God to make it happen. Do something, do anything as we dream big and be the change. Let us pray together. Lord Jesus, thank you that you know each one of us and that you love each one of us. I pray that you will move in each heart in this room, from the youngest to the oldest of us, and show us how and what your dreams are for us. How you would have us to dream big and then to act on those dreams to be the change we want to see in the world. And like the widow, let us be persistent in seeking that change, seeking your justice as we go. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Come up to do the benediction. As she's doing that, just a reminder, we also have the offering box over there that kicks for Kenya. They're asking for donations of lightly used or new sneakers or a monetary donation. If you can visit the box on after the service. And Hurricane Matthew. There's a collection for Hurricane Matthew as well.
Go forth to hear the voices of children made in God's own image. Go forth to bear the love of Christ who sided with the poor. Go forth to seek justice as the Spirit moves in and through you. May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the communion of the Holy Spirit be with you and each child of God now and forever. Amen.
Please stand.